It's Kevin Thomas. It's time for another edition of Saturday with Seniors, brought to you by local branches of FCCB. They're in Blossburg, Mansfield, and Wellsboro, serving our community for over 150 years. FCCB, member FDIC, equal housing lender. And I am sitting here in the kitchen of Basil Short, 75 years old. We're in the suburbs of Cherry Flats, I guess I would call this, the outskirts. And Basil, how are you?
Good. Real good.
Thank you for inviting us into your home. I'm so excited to hear about your life and what you've done in the 75 years of your life and everything else. So where were you born?
I was born in Wellsboro.
Right in Wellsboro.
Yeah, at the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Hospital.
And where was the first house you lived in?
Morris, Pennsylvania.
In downtown?
On the outskirts. They used to call it the old slaughter house because it was not too far from a sippy hole. And they used to butcher meat and stuff there.
You said a sippy hole? What's a sippy hole?
There's a stream down below, about maybe a quarter of a mile, and it was called the old sippy hole.
Okay.
We used to go there to go swimming.
That's neat. I wonder if people still go there swimming or call it that now.
They still call it that, but not too many people go there now because it's kind of hard to get into it.
Ah, interesting. So you grew up in Morris. What school did you go to?
I went to a one-room school there in Morris. It was about maybe a mile from where I lived.
Uh-huh. Was that in Nauvoo?
No, that was in Morris.
In Morris. Where was the one-room schoolhouse in Morris?
Well, they changed it from the schoolhouse. They did it for a state garage or whatever, town garage.
That was the schoolhouse originally.
Yep.
And what grades went there?
First to third and the first floor, and then the second floor they had the gym. And also they had like a blackboard separating the rooms, so they had up to sixth grade total in there.
And what happened with kids when they got in trouble? They have dunce caps in school back then, or
No,
they had the paddle board? Which is worse? I don't know which is worse.
The younger kids were not bad, but the older ones there, they got a rubber hose.
Really?
Yep, a regular garden hose.
Kids, you hearing this? The good old days when rubber hose were used. Wow.
Yeah.
So how often did rubber hose get used?
Well, to my cousins, they got used practically every day because he was pretty bad.
Jeez. Any other school stories besides rubber hose beatings?
Well, the only thing is that my cousin had got a hold of the hose after that and kind of cut it up in little bitty pieces.
He had enough of that.
Yeah.
Did he learn his lesson when he grew up? Did he straighten things out?
Or
Or was
he
he
did straighten out, yeah.
All right, well, maybe the rubber hoses, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Not sure it was the best solution, but it did get the results.
Yeah, he got the results.
So what was school like in a one-room schoolhouse? Was there like a coal stove that heated this room that you were in?
No, they actually had a furnace down below for some reason, down in the basement.
Yep. And any other stories with school that you can share? Do you remember your teacher's name or anything, or funny
my
things?
teacher's name was Eva Jane Hughes. She was a sweet old lady, and she helped you out.
Yeah. How long was school day? Was it a whole...
It was till 3 o'clock.
Yep, right till 3 o'clock. And then did you have chores that you had to do at that age? Before school or after school? When did you have to...
After school, I had stuff to do. Like I said, when I lived there in Morris, it was about a mile away, so we walked home for lunch. We had about an hour for lunch.
So did anybody eat at school? If you didn't bring lunch, you had to go home for lunch.
Well, a lot of people did eat at school because they brown bagged it.
Yes, so there was no hot lunch available at school. So
No.
On one of your walks home from school, I understand an accident happened.
Yeah, when I was 7, I got hit by a car.
Oh, how fast is this car going?
Well, it wasn't going very fast, but he knocked me down. Before I got knocked down, I pushed my cousins and my sister, so they fell down over a bank.
So you might have saved their lives.
Yes.
Wow. You pushed them over the bank, the car hit you, and then what happened to you?
Well, I was pushed 350 feet across an iron bridge.
An iron bridge. So that's the...
When it makes the noise when you go across it.
I bet you did.
My whole back was bad, and I lost my left ear over the deal. And the guy stopped. He backed up around a curve that was like going up Oregon Hill.
Uh-huh.
So he could go a little bit faster. And as he was backing up, my sister had gotten up and pulled me over the bank till he went by. And he did get arrested, and they asked him, why did you speed up and everything like that? And he says, well, there was something in the road, and I wanted to get over it. And the cop said, well, it was a child, a boy. And he said, well, he shouldn't have been playing in the road anyway. And I said, well, I wasn't playing in the road. I was walking back to school from home.
Yeah.
From lunch.
Wow.
So when he did get away, I got up and started walking towards the school, and my sister asked me, he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I got to go to school." "You can't. You got to go home." She took my hand, put it up to my ear, and brought it back, and I seen what the problem was. And
Yeah, oh my gosh. You're kind of in shock probably at this point.
yeah, I was in shock. And I walked back home, which was about a quarter of a mile, and when I got in my yard, I collapsed on the ground. And my mother was always canning chicken and different meats and stuff. She was down in the cellar and brought the jar up of chicken she was going to fix for my dad and her for lunch. And when she seen me, her hands went up in the air. She said, "Oh my God," and dropped the jar right on the concrete slab. She said when she got back home, that jar wasn't even cracked.
Wow. So did the medics show up and just tell you to walk home with your ear missing? I mean,
No.
It was a total hit and run, and no other car stopped to try to help you or anything.
Right.
Okay, I can't imagine in this day and age that someone wouldn't stop to
Yeah,
help.
back then it didn't.
Well, you're an angel to have saved your
Yep.
brother and sister's lives
Yep,
in that situation. So how many years did you go to the school for?
3.
3 years? And then from there, where did you go to school?
We moved up on Oregon Hill on the Mount Pleasant Road.
Yeah.
And I went to Nauvoo School. They call it New Link.
New Link. Okay. Linc, I think it was spelled. What, right?
INCK.
And K, okay.
Yeah. And I was there for maybe 2 years, and then went to Liberty Joint High.
Very interesting. So tell me about your first job.
I worked down in Morris on the Landers Road. It was called the Acid Factory, where they made charcoal. What I did was I loaded logs on top of the wood there in the boxcars.
So the railroad ran back then into Morris.
Well, they just had this boxcars there that they had for their own personal use. They put them in ovens to make the charcoal.
I see. So you would load wood onto these boxcars that rolled into the oven.
Yep.
This must have been tough work.
Well, it was heavy work.
Yeah. A few splinters here and there too. You wore gloves?
A few.
Yeah.
I tried wearing gloves. For some reason, I couldn't wear gloves then.
So how big was this company that made charcoal back then? Later became Morris Block. It was in that building for a while. It still stands off the Landers Road. But how was this, 100 people company, 10 people?
No, there was probably about 6 or 8 people. So
Yeah.
there wasn't very many.
And what was Morris like back then? So after quitting time, you came into town. Did people come in for a drink? Was it a party town?
Yeah, they had a few beers in that, but I didn't drink at that time.
Yeah. So what was Morris like? What type of stores were in town? Tell me about some of
They
the...
had a general store. It was called Comstocks.
Is that where the general store is now, or Pierce's is, or was
Yes.
it? Okay.
It went just before you're going out of Morris.
Yep. There was Babs Creek restaurant there then? Or the hotel, Babs Creek
Yeah,
Inn?
they-
Had it, or Black's, or what, I'm not sure what it was called then.
Gotchel, or not Gotchel's.
Gotchel's was there. Now, there's some stories to be told on that one.
I never went there, but
You never went to Gotchel's.
no,
How did you never go to Gotchel's?
I don't know.
I know you didn't drink, but Lady Mary had a hotel that later just turned into her house, but she kept the bar there. So Mary would open the bar up about 2 days a week, roll the cooler out with wheels. We'd have about 20 beers on ice. And when the 20 beers ran out, Mary closed the door, and that was it. And usually, if you asked Mary what type of beer she had, she would say both kinds, Jenny and Jenny Light. And that was what happened there. I understand if you didn't drink, you missed that. So I'll fill that part of the story in. But tell me some more.
Well, I did go down to, they had a general store and gas station type deal there, middle of town. I'd go there and I'd buy ice cream. And you get a couple of dips for 10 cents. And we'd go and buy a loaf of bread for 10 cents. My gas was
Yeah.
25 cents.
25 cents a gallon for gas.
25 cents a gallon.
How do you feel now when you're pumping gas? It hurts.
Yeah, it hurts. Wishing for the old days.
How about Morris Old Home Days and Morris Rattlesnake Roundup? Were those going on back when you were young
Yes,
then?
they were. I'd go down there. We had like a carnival down there at the time. But as for the rattlesnake hunt, I said, I never lost any, so why would I go?
But that was truly a hunt back then. There were people
Yes.
buying people would come up and collect as many snakes as they could, sell the snakes. The skins were bought. Companies would come into town to buy them. And that basically paid for the people's weekend party.
Yes.
I guess it was quite a wild time.
Yeah, they get a little bit loud there sometimes down there.
I've heard of stories of beer can walls all the way across Route 287 at some point along history, and a bulldozer going down the road. But that's about all I know.
Yeah, they did.
So when you were a kid back, 5, 8, 9 years old, what type of things did you do for fun?
Well, we played games. Outside there, we had one game that we liked playing. It was called Annie Over. You'd take a rubber ball and throw it over the house.
Okay.
And somebody on the other side tried to catch it, but you'd yell Annie Over when you threw the ball.
Huh. I remember Red Rover. But
that's another game we played.
Annie Over, I don't remember that. You didn't play with rocks. You played with the ball.
A rubber ball, yeah.
Okay, yeah, much better way to play.
Yeah, we got hollered at one day there for doing it because our mother said, you better make sure you don't break them windows. We never did. I mean, you always threw them over. And another thing we do would we take a stick and use these little green apples and fling them with a stick.
Oh, I've done that before. You can whip them off the end, and you can get them to fly pretty good.
Yep, they did.
Did you break a window doing that?
Nope. we always throw them away from the house. And I used to like to wrestle with my brothers, and also would wrestle around with my uncle. My uncle was 6'3" and over 200 pounds, and I'd wrestle with him. And one day he grabbed a hold of me, and I grabbed a hold of his arm, and right up over my head he went. I flipped him.
And then from then on out,
I started running so he wouldn't get me because he couldn't get me. And he got in the house, and my mother said to him, "What happened there?" He says, "Oh, I slipped." She said, "What? 3 times?" He didn't know what to say after that.
Yep.
He worked down to where had a garage down there with Barney's gas station down there in Mohorse. And when he'd change an engine, he wouldn't use block and tackle. He'd pick it up by hand.
Really?
Yes.
An old iron engine or whatever.
Yep.
They weren't lighter than those engines.
No.
There was room to get your hands around the engine in those days, but wow.
Right. And for a transmission, he'd lay underneath the car and he wouldn't use the transmission jack. He'd pick it right up and put it in himself.
Jason is here on the microphone. Jason, you've done transmission.
I have, and they're not light. You need a jack.
Well, he never used the jack.
That's crazy.
Very interesting. We're almost running out of time, but I'll tell you what, we'll do 2 episodes. You want to join us again next week on our Saturday with Seniors?
Sure.
All right. So Basil Short will be joining us again next week. I'm having a great time talking with you. You got some great stories. I want to hear some more of them, so I don't want to cut things off too soon. So we'll be joining Basil Short again next Saturday at 10 a.m. It's all brought to you by FCCB, the local branches in Blossburg, Mansfield, and Wellsboro. FCCB, over 150 years, your hometown bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. If you missed any of today's episode, you can hear it online. Go to our website, kc101fm.com, and click on our Saturday with Seniors link, and you can listen to all the previous